Hi, I'm Charles with AniCap. The story begins by showing a group of adventurers being attacked by an S-ranked forest dragon. The dragon's attacks are ferocious and the trio can only run for their lives. Elsewhere, our protagonist Al finishes up harvesting some of his crops. He receives a notification that all his farmer skills have finally become level 10 and he is greeted by his friend Testa. Testa points out how incredible that is considering Al's fishery level is a 10 as well, and he is not even a fisherman like Testa. Al explains it must be because he has the blessing called growth promotion, and Testa points out how rare it is to have a blessing. Another notification allows him to integrate farmer skills which he has never seen before, and he is told that he has evolved into a true lover of nature and will now receive the grace of earth. Testa points out that Al's attack power is now an incredible 73,612, but Al is only worried about making sure he delivers all his goods to the market. On his way, Al spots the dragon attacking the trio of adventurers. He throws a carrot at the powerful dragon in the hopes of distracting it for just a moment so that the trio can get away, but surprisingly ends up completely destroying it. Afterwards, Al arrives at the capital with his crops and instantly rescues a girl being kidnapped. Al makes quick work of the criminal and reveals that he just learned the power of insight to help win the fight. Unfortunately, Al doesn't have time to give the girl his name and just barely makes it in time to deliver his crops. Afterwards, the guards at the gate stop him from leaving, and the girl reappears to explain that she is the first princess of the capital named Magus. Al formally introduces himself and Magus offers him a job at the royal household. Al thinks about how he wouldn't be caught dead there but holds his tongue and politely declines. Magus states that the pay is good, but Al simply wants to garden in the fields and live out his life. Magus offers to give him several acres of land, but Al can't understand why she would go so far, and she reveals that the man he defeated earlier had an average status of 500. Magus explains that ordinary people have an average status of 50, while adventurers have 130. Knight captains are around 600, and the greatest legendary heroes have an average status of 1000. Magus would like to see Al's status, but he hesitates since his status is 65,000. Luckily for him, their conversation is interrupted by the trio of adventurers who explain that the forest dragon was defeated, but not by them. They state that someone used a tremendously powerful weapon to make the dragon explode. Based on their description, Magus believes it might have been Al, but he is long gone, and she promises to not give up on hiring him. Later, the king is informed that a swarm of monsters is approaching the kingdom, and it seems like it is an attack directly from hell. The king is shocked since they had previously made peace with demonkind, but Administrator Cecil arrives to explain that some demon races are upset over the previous demon king's defeat. They are now being led by a new demon king and his name is Romeo Van Dead. Cecil advises that the king and princess both leave the capital immediately, but the king takes full responsibility and refuses to run away. Cecil explains that the king did the best he could and always made the right decisions to protect his people. That is why he is a great leader and the main reason he needs to survive. Elsewhere, a very tired Al returns home but accidentally uses too much force and breaks his doorknob off. Just then, Testa arrives to warn that a swarm of monsters is passing by their village and they need to run away. Al is concerned for his crops though and checks on them to find that monsters are nearby. He is surprised to see that they are completely ignoring everything and heading straight to the capital. He considers leaving it to the royal knights to deal with, but realizes that his crop selling would be affected if the capital were destroyed. Elsewhere, the fleeing king realizes that they are on a path that leads to a dead end, and Cecil explains that it is actually their destination. The king is confused but is instantly attacked by Cecil, who explains that he has been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. He explains that Cecil never even really existed, and his real name is Romeo Van Dead. He explains that he would never try to destroy a country the way the previous demon king did, and would much rather impersonate the king to rule over it. He unleashes a devastating attack, but the king manages to block it just in time. Magus helps strengthen their defense, but Romeo overpowers them both easily. Romeo wonders why his forest dragon's attack and abduction of the princess failed, but Magus refuses to tell him that it was Al. Romeo unleashes the finishing blow, but Al arrives just then to use a ground dig up ability. That coupled with another powerful farming ability breaks up the fight, and Romeo wonders who this guy is. Al states that he is a farmer and explains how his simple farming abilities were able to stop the demon. Romeo now realizes that Al has been the one getting in his way and reveals his true form. His new stats are absurdly high and the princess begs Al to run away. Romeo wants to make Al pay for provoking him but only ends up getting defeated by one punch from Al. Afterwards, the king offers to give Al any title he would like in return for serving the kingdom, but Magus points out that he isn't interested in status or honor. She instead offers to give him the 30,000 meters of land as thanks for his help against the demon, but only if he agrees to join a guild. She would like him to lend his strength every once in a while, and Al agrees to the fair trade. Afterwards, Al realizes he has a lot of work ahead of him, considering the land he was given is practically a wasteland. Later, Magus and Al enjoy a walk through the town, and she explains her maid is acting as her body double. She takes him to their guild, and Al reminds her that he really only wants to be a farmer, but acknowledges that he needs to work off the share of land he received. Before they enter, Magus explains that her hair accessory has deception magic, and no one will be able to recognize her as the princess. Inside, Al learns that people are talking about his heroics and meets the guild's receptionist, Helen. Al is starving, so Helen treats him to a meal and explains his reasons for wanting to join the guild. The trio from before arrive and now realize that Al must have been the one to defeat the S-rank forest dragon with one hit. He tries to explain that he simply wants to be a farmer, but they don't listen and ask him to battle the monsters together in the future. Afterwards, Al would like to start questing, and Helen tells him that he will be starting out as a G rank, so the quests are not difficult. Adventurers are ranked from G to SS, but SS is only for heroes. She is certain that with his skills, Al could become an S rank in no time, but he thinks about how he doesn't want that since it would bring too much attention. His first quest is to gather 10 stalks of milk grass, but Helen explains he can't go without at least some gear. Al explains that he can't afford any just yet, and she gives him a robe that's imbued with magic power. It amplifies his defensive power a bit, and he reluctantly accepts it. Al prepares to go on his quest, but there will be monsters there, and he doesn't want to risk putting the princess in danger. In the forest, Al almost finishes his quest when he spots a scale and notices that monsters with scales aren't on the list of expected creatures in the forest. The list does mention that orcs might throw themselves at humanoid figures, and Al encounters one. The trio arrive to rescue him, and Al shows them the scale of an unidentified monster. It's not the first to be found, and Jake explains that there are rumors that it belongs to a black dragon. No one has actually seen the dragon though, and they explain that Al can get a lot of money by selling the scale. Al explains that he needs to gather one more stock, but they are interrupted when an immense aura stuns them all. They are unable to move even an inch when a black dragon appears before them. It simply walks past them as they are all frozen in fear, and Al attempts to get a look at its stats, but the results are horrifying. Elsewhere, Helen wakes from a nightmare and returns to work where she explains that she has lost her memory again. She has lost all memory of what happened the previous day, and Al shows up to report something urgent. They visit the guildmaster where Al explains that the dragon has an attack power of 230,000. It's clear that the dragon has the power to destroy the country in the blink of an eye, and it apparently goes by the name Ouroboros. The mention of the name makes Ellen weak, but she wants to continue hearing the report. There isn't much to report though, as the dragon simply walk past them, and they explain that heroes might not even stand a chance against it. Al shows them the scale he found, and Helen recalls a memory of her childhood when her brother was killed by a dragon. Helen faints, and we see that later, Al waits for her to wake up. Helen's adopted mother explains that Helen has no memories of her childhood and was found as a child collapsed on the bank of a river. Her mother begins to wonder if her memory loss has something to do with the dragon, and Al promises to find out. He also refuses to let the dragon just roam free, but Helen's mother reminds him that he is still just a G-rank adventurer. He explains that he won't be fighting the dragon, but instead will do research on it. Outside, the mailman named Reeks finds Al to give him a letter from his mother, and Al can't believe how the messenger was able to find him. At the library, Al struggles to find any information on the dragon and thinks about its extremely high attack power of 230,000. He thinks about how the demon he defeated only had an attack power of 5,000. His own power is also unbelievably high at over 70,000, but that still pales in comparison to the dragon. Al has an idea to read the damage reports around the time Helen was found, but they are restricted. The princess arrives to allow him access, and she points out how Al seems interested in adventuring now. He points out that that isn't the case and states that he simply can't ignore someone suffering in front of him. Their research finds that a village had been decimated 15 years ago by what many believe to be a black dragon. However, it died soon after in a fight with its natural enemy, a dragon named Mirage. Al plans to investigate the village of Hanel and is surprised to hear that the princess wants to go as well. They arrive to find the decimated village and hope to find a clue. Just then, Al can hear someone calling to him and follows the voice to a nearby grave. A boy named Rai appears, but the princess can't see him, and Al realizes that the boy must be a ghost. Rai confirms that he is a ghost and states that he's been waiting for a long time for a person that could hear him. The two realize they are wearing the same robe imbued with magic, and Al uses it so that the princess can see Rai. Rai reveals that Helen is his big sister and she is the village's sole survivor. He explains that she must be suppressing her memories because they are far too painful, but that means she is now in great danger. A look into the past shows Helen telling her brother to stop playing hero as it is too dangerous. He states that he isn't playing though and vows to become a warrior one day. Helen just wants to protect her one and only brother, but they are interrupted when their village is attacked. They find that it is the black dragon, and it states that it hates humans that show no fear. The dragon is clearly very strong and dangerous, so the two decide that they can't help the others and must run away. They are stopped by the dragon though. It chases them and explains that it enjoys nothing more than to see humans' faces full of despair. Helen falls and the dragon states that it's time to feast while her soul is steeped in fear. Rai throws a dagger in the hopes that it will allow her to escape, but the dragon is unaffected. It goes after Rai instead though and fatally wounds him. The dragon is pleased with himself but is disappointed at how fragile humans are. He has nearly wiped out the entire town but decides to let Helen live. He tells her that in 15 years he will return to kill her and eradicate the rest of the town. He knows that she will be saturated in fear by then, but Rai says he won't let it happen. He promises that even if he dies, he won't give up on protecting his big sister. The dragon states that he will allow Rai's soul to remain in this world so that he can see the fate that awaits his sister. The black dragon leaves and Rai slowly passes away. Rai now knows that the dragon always leaves one survivor after attacking a village and comes back for them 15 years later. This way, his legend can grow and people begin to fear him more. By doing so, it can easily eat the negative energy of its prey and increase its own power. Rai wants Al to defeat the dragon, but Al explains that he isn't strong enough. However, Rai believes that if the dragon is hit with the opposite power of despair, then it should be able to weaken the dragon. With no time to waste, Al rushes off to find Helen and is glad to see that the dragon hasn't arrived at the village yet. The princess heads off to prepare the village for evacuation and Al goes to find Helen. However, we see that she has gone off on her own and encounters the black dragon. It states that he has returned to dine upon the frightened souls of her and her friends, and her memories of that day come rushing back to her. The dragon makes her fall deeper into despair by blaming her for her brother's death and the future deaths of everyone in the village. It works as she begs him to only take her life, and the dragon feasts on her despair. He fuels her despair further by declining her request and stating that everyone will die regardless. The dragon buries her further into despair and convinces her to take her own life. Just as she states that she will be joining her brother, Al arrives just in time to stop her. The dragon attacks Al, but his robe saves him, and the dragon wonders if he is even human after surviving. Helen wants Al to run away, but he decides to punch the dragon instead. He assures Helen that he is there to save her, but realizes that one punch won't be enough to stop the dragon. He assures Helen once more, and she remembers her brother doing the same. Al is prepared to fight, and the dragon begins its assault. Al does what he can to defend himself, but the dragon is far too powerful. Helen begs that Al stop fighting as she doesn't want anyone else dying because of her, but he points out that she is wrong. Al reveals that he met her brother earlier and he knew she would blame herself for everything. Rai's message to her is that he doesn't regret saving her and that she should live a happy life in everyone's behalf. Al expresses confidence in their ability to win the fight and explains that it is the key to defeating the black dragon. The dragon wants her to continue falling into despair though, and Al points out that it's because the dragon's stats are quickly falling. Al realizes that Rai was right and hope is weakening the dragon. The dragon begins its final attack, but Al lands one devastating punch to defeat the beast. Helen expresses concern for Al's wounds, but when he tells her that he is fine, she surprisingly stabs him. Thanks for watching part 1 of this series. Future parts will be in a linked comment below.